Before I start, I'd like to thank the sponsors of this meeting, Borders Wine, a family business and a Greek wine specialist based in the Scottish Borders. You can find them on www.borderswines.co.uk, and you can find over 60 exciting Greek wines picked personally by Ken, the owner, and representing most of Greece. The samples, which I will show you in a minute, are courtesy of Maltby and Greek, that is the UK importer and distributor for both Ktima Chatzivariti and Domaine Karanika. And it's now time to start properly. So, well, Kalispera sas, everybody. And tonight we're in Greece. And no, don't expect white houses and blue windows. We're in the turquoise sea, because tonight we're in Macedonia, and we will be in the north of Greece. That is slightly different. Our guests on the show are Chloi Chatzivariti from Ktima Chatzivariti, a winemaker, and the winemaker Domaine Karanika, Laurens Hartman, and owner. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And,
thank you.
So yes, people are still trickling in, so we can start by showing you, everybody, a bit of orientation as we do every week of where we are. So here's the map, and I will just move here so I can zoom out a bit more to make sure that everybody knows where we are. It's Greece as you know it, but we're in the north, and the two domains are marked on the map. We have this is Thessaloniki, by the way, just to orientate you further, and the peninsula of Chalkidiki, and you have Ktima Chatzivariti here in Goumenissa and Domaine Karanika, Amyndeo. Between them is about, as the crow flies, 69 kilometers, but there are different wine regions. We will hear about the common things, mainly Xinomavro and a few other elements, and many things in to differentiate. And I will just a minute. Whoever's rustling, please mute yourself. I will start by asking the questions first to Laurens. So we often hear the romantic story of selling up, moving somewhere sunny, planting a vineyard, making wine, etc., which is making me very jealous. Do you want to maybe share with us your personal odyssey of going back to Greece from the Netherlands?
Yes, well, going back is, in a sense, is not true. Moving to Greece, my mother's Greek, but I have never lived in Greece before. I was brought up with wine from a very young age, and when I studied in the University of Leiden, we lived in a small fraternity house, like with 10 other guys, men only. And we had a tradition where we were trying to buy and find. This is in the early 80s. The cheapest, best possible wine. So we drove to northern France to buy wines. Now, mind you, in the early 1980s. The wines that were made were not with too much interference from the winemaker. There were no tools. There was temperature. There was some other stuff, but there was not all the products that are available to manipulate the wines. So the wines in the early 80s were very pure, and because we are talking about northern France, they were also highly acidic and low in alcohol. I'm talking about Burgundy, Loire, Champagne, and this sort of built my palate. Through the 90s and the early 2000s, these wines disappeared, partly because of global change, climate change, and partly because people like Michel Rolland changed the whole wine scenery, which made for me the wines less and less interesting, because they were all alike, and blind tasting was no fun anymore. And I was longing for those old traditional wines that I really loved. And the only alternative was in the early 2000s. It was organic and biodynamic wines, which they were probably, most of them were undrinkable, because they were in the beginning, and they didn't really know how to make those wines. And so at some point, after lots of studies, University of Davis in California, a WSET diploma, and all the other things, I decided that we should try and make those wines for ourselves. So we started looking, and the irony is that we looked all over the place, in Germany and Switzerland, all mountainous areas. We ended up in the land of my mother, the land which is least associated with high acidity and low alcohol wines. We only knew, though, in those days, Greek wines were the Retsinas, the sweet, sometimes delicious sweet Samos wines, but not for high quality, you know, with high acidity and focused wines. By chance, I came across this region, which was a sleepy region in the northeast of Greece. No one heard of it. And there were lots of vineyards, old vineyards, pre-phylloxera vineyards. And people here were begging people to come to this area and buy the grapes or make wines, because the grapes of Amyndeo were so acidic in those days. They were sold all over Greece to correct the acidity and add aromas in other wines, illegally, I presume. So we found this area with amazing terroir behind the mountains, so protected from the Mediterranean, with a history that's going back 2,000-3,000 years of Xinomavro, a grape variety that is difficult to ripen, ripens very late. And we started off, as you said, with the romantic ideas, like we make some nice, you know, organic, natural wine, and we try to make it as good as possible. We have some cows and some chicken, you know, do some wine tourism, and
Laurens, sorry to interrupt, but you had sparkling wine on your mind from the start?
No. I had in my portfolio in Leiden, the university, was champagne. So champagne has always been my love and my passion. However, how could I realize that Xinomavro was able to make this magnificent, refreshing, you know, it was a surprise. However, I had a hunch that because the grapes couldn't ripen here in Amyndeo, it was a problem for the farmers. People didn't want to buy red wine. They had problems. For me, these unripe grapes were they were God sent. They were a present, because they were organic. They didn't use too much fertilizers and stuff, and they had high acidity. So I just had a go. I just tried it, because in Amyndeo, a good red wine harvest occurs only one in every 3 to 5 years, like it was in Burgundy in the old days. I mean, you had good vintages and bad vintages, and we ended up in an area where you have good vintages and very bad vintages. So 2013 was great, 2017 was great. The in-between years, we didn't bottle any red wine. Because it wasn't good enough. There was rain, there was cold, there was, you know, it was Northern European weather with all the problems coming with it. But for sparkling wine, you don't mind. I mean, you can always make a very decent sparkling wine from a not so decent grape, because I think more than 50-60% of the quality of sparkling wine is made in the cellars. Very important to have good working material with the right pH and with the right acidity and the length, but there is so much influence of the aging on the lee, of the way you start second fermentation, how you disgorge, how you keep the wines in your cellars, how long. After 9 years on the cellars, the influence of the vintage is not that great anymore. It is more about complexity, about minerality, which is evolved and started during the second fermentation. So at some point in 2014, we realized that these sparkling wines we started making for fun, they were pretty good, and the audience was really amazed with it. We were being asked for these wines from all over the world, from Japan to Canada, New York, London. And we decided, obviously, to let go of this romantic idea of having this farm with the piggies and the chickens, and just focus on making sparkling wine. And this is what we do. We have an assistant enologist that is just checking all my wines, all the tanks. That is I mean, at some point you come in sort of a premium league with your wines, and you need to pay attention to the smallest of details continuously, and that's too much for me. So I mean, I have 10 hectares of vineyards. We do marketing. I do marketing. I sell wines. I travel. I'm alone. So this assistant winemaker, she is my Excel spreadsheet. And she's always next to me, and she knows from every base wine the pH, the acidity, and she keeps track of it. And we work on the dangerous low level of sulfite, which means you have to check every 2-3 weeks, because we want to be under 10 milligrams of free sulfite. If you're over 13, 14, your second fermentation is in danger of not happening. If you're under 10, then you might spoil the base wine, even under 3 pH. So it is. I mean, it's like a circus act. We walk on a tightrope of between 10 and 14 free sulfite, and that's an amazing thing.
Guys, I think those of you that know me personally and I spoke to in the days leading to this will attest that I said this guy needs a session on his own. And now you got to taste.
Sorry, I'm taking up all the time.
No,
Sorry.
No. Laurens, it's my challenge to try to bring the two together. But
okay, you just need to do this, and then I'll stop.
I'll send you a personal message quickly.
No, I don't wear my glasses. I don't see personal messages.
I think the things that you have in common, other than Xinomavro, is I think also maybe the way you arrived in the area in the same around the same time. Maybe actually Chloi returned to her family estate after you already been established as a sparkling wine producer. Chloi grew up in Thessaloniki, but the family had the estate all her life, so it's not new to her, but then went to study in different parts of the world and made wine in Argentina, Chile, and New Zealand. And my question to you, Chloi, is that was it always the plan to return home, or were you not tempted to stay somewhere out of this? May I mention, I think it's mentioned in the write-up, but I'll mention it again. Chloi was making wine in Chateau Margaux. So it's a big thing on your CV. Okay, Chloi.
It's not bad. I don't think that it was always the plan. It was the main plan to come back, but I never knew when. And you know, when you're always traveling and working in different parts, this is quite charming. So it like you just go with the flow. And if you don't decide to just stop this, just stop doing harvests all over the place, it's not so easy. And also because it is a family estate and it was not my estate, it was a big challenge to come back. Family business is always a challenging thing, I suppose. So actually, I just started working around, and at some point, I was about to go to work somewhere, and it didn't work out, so I had to come back for the vintage of 2016. And then I slowly started doing my own experiments, and I understood that by working my own wine, I can learn a lot of things, a lot more. And this started being like more charming than just going around and working for other people. So then I did one harvest in Chile and Argentina, and in 2017 I decided to come back. And this is how it happened.
And what did you find? I mean, am I right to say that it was quite traditional? The Goumenissa is a great wine. I have it here, but it's a fantastic wine, and that is the flagship. But you brought with you all sorts of different ways of thinking. You told me, by the way, there is a fantastic episode that I interviewed Chloi last year in London, and telling me about the sorting table and arguing and getting yourself physically worn down. So I'll let you tell the story here.
Yes, for me, actually, this whole thing started when I was studying agriculture in Thessaloniki. So in 2011, I just came in contact with biodynamic agriculture in general, not viticulture. And I was very much surprised that I was doing engineering agronomy, and we had 5 years of studies, and we didn't even have one class of organic agriculture. I'm not speaking about permaculture, I'm not speaking about biodynamics, just organic. Everything was conventional. And at the time, my father was doing organic viticulture. And so we had one class that it was about pesticides. And in the end of the first class, the professor said that all the people who are doing organic, they are just lazy and they are lying because this is not possible. And I got very angry. Like, I took it very personally, actually. And I started searching a lot about biodynamic and other ways of agriculture. And every time I was going to the class, he was saying something, and I was saying exactly the opposite, but by presenting data. And by that, I started being very interested in biodynamics. I went to France in 2013 to do my master's. And this is where I got in contact with natural wine, because at the time, in Greece, I cannot say that I was familiar with that. And of course, in France, France is good because there are so many wine fairs and wine presentations. So you can just go around and taste so much wine. And I was doing that for the first year when I was in Montpellier. I came in contact with a lot of biodynamic and natural winemakers. And that's how I also met Léon Barral, Didier Barral, he has the winery of Léon Barral. And then I went to work there, to do my first vintage in France in Léon Barral. And I think that this is the vintage, like the harvest I did, that it gave me all the basic knowledge to go on with natural wine. Because if you see what I did afterwards, it was going to Chateau Margaux, which is a high-end winery. And then I went to Pernod Ricard in New Zealand, which is like in France, there will be a cooperative, which is a huge winery, like very big one. And then I went to Argentina working for Piccolo Banfi, and in Chile working for the project of Chateau Lafite, which is Viña Los Vascos. I think that I had completely different experiences. And this is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the whole industry, not just focus on natural wine. I saw everything. I worked for different wineries. And then when I came back, I knew what I want to do and I knew what I shouldn't do.
But commercially, you came back. I'm completely deviating now from my list of questions because I'm intrigued to hear, because that's something I've not asked you before. Commercially, you come back and it's the midst of the Greek economic crisis, and you tell your family, I want to do this, I want to do that. How does it go down with them? And how does the wine go down in the market?
It was a bit weird, but okay, I can admit that my father, he really supported me. So he's a businessman because he has another company. and he knows about investment. So he decided that he's going to invest in my ideas, and he's going to give me the chance to prove that this is something that can be done, and this is something that it can have any commercial interest. Of course, in the very beginning, introducing something so radical and so different from what you've been doing for so long, it is very difficult, because even the people working for us, they were telling me, you're going to make just vinegar. You're going to destroy everything, and you don't know what you're doing, and go back to France to do these things, and don't ruin our wines. My father, he was calmer, but there was always a bit of, they were worried if this can work. Of course, for me, because I was not worried, but of course it was my first vintage that I would produce something that would go to the market. And generally, my idea is to start with low volumes and then just go bigger once you know what you're doing. So the risk was not that big economically. And when I did the wines, they just went to the market. And to be honest with you, it was not like, I was very lucky, because Nobelrod, Mark Andrew from Nobelrod, he wrote an article about Xinomavro, and he put my wine Lito in 2017 in the list of the top rated Xinomavros from Nobelrod. So this gave a great push to the wines and the market.
You did mention to me about the wines that you unofficially labeled the wines of the crisis, and I think it's good. No, it's good, because from marketing point of view is a fantastic. Do you want to tell us about these I don't know if to call them entry level wines, but your the
Mosaic.
wines.
The Mosaic is our like multivarietal wines. It is a red and a white one. I think that these are the wines that keep the winery going. They are the wines that bring some money to the winery so that we can do other stuff and invest in other wines. But yes, we started these wines during the crisis, like in the very beginning of the crisis, saying that we need to have a wine going, and a wine that people would be able to drink, even if they are not like very wine lovers or wine people. And I think that it was a good idea.
So when you highlight, if you can highlight your experimentations back when you arrived, what were they, and what were the grape varieties, and what did you do that was different to other than because I know the Goumenissa, if you can highlight also what Goumenissa is as a red wine, just to tell everybody what's the requirement for the blend and aging, just to touch on that and say what was your main experimentation.
Yeah, Goumenissa, it is by law, it needs to be 20% Negoska and the rest Xinomavro. And then it needs to go in a barrel, a barrique, for at least 12 months. So for us, it was always organic, but however, the winemaking style, like we were using commercial yeasts and stuff. We were never like, in the winery, we were never experimenting with more minimal intervention techniques, let's say. So for me coming back, I had this idea of, I really much like Goumenissa, but as a person, I would also like to have wines that are easily drunk and wines that I can go to the wine shop, buy them today and drink them today, and not just wait for like 5 years until I drink them. And my idea was to make something fun, to always focus on Greek varieties, because I think that this is the most important thing, one of the most important. Yeah.
Very fun, yeah.
Yeah. One of the most important things that Greece has is the indigenous varieties. So I think that we really need to focus on that, and we need to work on it, not only from a winemaking point of view, but also from a marketing point of view. Like people need to start learning the names of the varieties and the characteristics, and they need to get a bit more familiar with them. And I think that this is happening in the last years.
Okay, so do you want to just run us through your grape varieties? Because again, we touch about Xinomavro, and because I know that you introduce all the time. This year we planted some Muscat and Malagousia, and but you, how many grapes varieties are you handling at the moment?
So we have Xinomavro, Negoska, Assyrtiko, Rhoditis, Malagousia, Muscat. And then we have a bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, Sauvignon Blanc, and a bit of Gewürztraminer, but we are thinking of grafting these varieties and turning them into indigenous ones.
And just to throw another a bit of an odd name into the mix, last year you told me that you're searching for lost grape falzarello. No?
Falzarello, yes.
Falzarello. So
Falzarello.
I take it there's no news about finding this this variety.
Not yet. Not yet. Still
Okay,
searching.
we will come back to your creations in the last 3 or 4 years, but just to swiftly move to Laurens, you mentioned before quite technical details about what you thought you can do with the unripe Xinomavro, but one thing that I'm thinking about, once you realized you can make really good sparkling wine, there was no discussion, there was no thinking about using because you said that you're a disciple of champagne. You didn't think about maybe the trio of champagne varieties to experiment at least? You see it in English sparkling wine, in Franciacorta, in Méthode Classique. It's is that not something that crossed your mind?
No, it didn't cross my mind, and I think fortunately it didn't cross my mind, because it is the surprise of drinking sparkling wine from Xinomavro that is so surprising to many of the people drinking the wine. They when they have their eyes closed, they are pretty sure it is Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, it is Northern European, could be not really Champagne, could be, you know, they were guessing and going. And then when you tell them, or when the sommelier tells them, or the wine shop owner tells them it's actually Xinomavro from Greece, then they are flabbergasted. They don't know what to say.
You're telling an amazing story which I heard before about doing it in Champagne. Do you mind repeating it here? When you took some wines to your mentor in
Yes.
Champagne.
Yes, I was doing. I had an insight period, and like a trainee period at Ruelle Pertois, which is a small sparkling wine producer, and when I left after just 1 month in the harvest, he gave me an old pupitre, you know, so like good luck. But he was thinking I was going to make some sparkling wine in a garage in Rotterdam. So he didn't really take me seriously.
And then you returned back with the...
And since he is not really good in internet, so he didn't follow me. He didn't know what was happening. He didn't have Facebook. He was really a French, you know, well, you know the French. They don't do this. So at some point I knocked on his door with 3 sparkling wines I produced from Xinomavro, no label, nothing. We tried them, and then he said, we're going to the cafe, to my friends, because you know in Champagne everyone is
congregating,
working in the industry, the champagne industry, and in Épernay you can find any other profession, so everyone worked there. So he went to his local pub. He took the wines with him. Sat on his table, and he invited his friends to try this wine blind, and well, they were all gassing. Oh, sure, no, this is not from the Parcelle de Geoffroy. No. So they had millions of theories, and then at some point he said, well, no, actually, this guy, he's making this sparkling wine in Greece. Mais non, no. That was impossible. And obviously we didn't give in, because it was true. And then we threw the bombshell that it was Xinomavro, and not even, they were sure it was a blend of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And the acidity, and so they couldn't, it was that we left. Otherwise there would have been a third world war starting in this cafe in Épernay, because they said this is a fraud, and the Greeks are frauds, and you know, so you bought some champagne from one of us, and then you put your label on it, and we're going to report you to the police, and this is not. It was so fun. I'm
Sounds
meaning,
like it.
I was pretty scared. I tell you the truth. But Monsieur Perrois was very relaxed, and it just shows you how much. If you have champagne in mind and you drink a sparkling wine made in the traditional method from Xinomavro, it is mistaken for, well, the interesting thing is most of them were going for Chardonnay from a Blanc de Blanc type of wine instead of a Blanc de Noir, because Xinomavro is a black grape. And that was huge fun. And for me, this was the like the green light to go ahead with this project, because if I can even fool the Champenois with this wine, then that's a good sign. But Tom Stevenson explained to me why they were fooled, because as I said, cellar work is so important in the eventual quality. What we did is I followed the old style, not the modern champagne, the old style champagne production method by the minute, by the milligram, by the everything. We did everything by hand, like they did always. Dégorgeage à la volée, by hand, no ice, no nothing. Not even bentonite in the beginning. So we didn't have any riddling agents or anything. And the other thing is, we followed. Look, Chloe was born in a winemaking family, so she knew some things from very small. I was a complete stranger, which means that if you're not sure of something, you start looking for things. You start looking for explanations. If my father would have told me, like, no, you should do it like this, then okay, you follow this, and then if it goes wrong, and you know. But if you know nothing, you don't have a father standing next to you telling you what to do, then you start looking for answers. When we started disgorging our wines, we noticed lots of changes in the quality of the foaming. And I called my friends in Champagne, and they said, mon ami, it's the temperatures. It is, you have to have, and all sorts of. In the end, we realized it had to do with the moon cycle. So if you do dégorgement before full moon, it's going to be shitty. It's a lot of foaming. You will lose the power of your bubbles and everything. If you do it on an air day, the biodynamic air days after full moon, it's like you open a still bottle of water, not sparkling. So it's so easy. It's not foaming, it's not volatile, it is very. So because I was looking for explanations, we found a lot of things that they didn't even know in Champagne. And because I think we have a very, very good sparkle in our wines, the mousse is very good. That's another factor why people mistake you for a real Champagne or a sparkling wine from Champagne. So yes, it's great fun making a disguised product.
So it's then I wanted to touch on that, on your approach to biodynamic, and how now you quite well, you run everything by it. So to just add to your challenges, you added that. And do you find it a big challenge? Do you think it's if you did it in a country where there's more biodynamic viticulture, you'd find it easier, or
oh yes, I'm begging for more people doing this, because there's only 5 or 6 that are here in Greece that are honestly trying. I mean, lots of them say they are biodynamic, but that honestly are trying to be biodynamic. It's only 5 or 6, and only 1 or 2 are certified, which means that there's not a lot of knowledge. So I go to Champagne 2-3 times a year just to ask millions of questions. which cannot be answered here. But it's not a big challenge because I don't know any different. I mean, I know nothing about fertilizers. I know nothing about pesticides. I know nothing about fungicides. For me, those things are. I mean, I don't take antibiotics to just not get sick. So why do this in the vineyard? There's no other way for me. So it's not a challenge. And to tell you the truth, I have never used yeast from a factory, and we never had any off, odors, problems with fermentation, and so I truly, honestly don't understand why people think that. But I mean, you have to know how to make wine. And if you're a clean person and you are on top of the wine and you smell the wine every day, and you're critical of yourself, and as soon as it gets mushroomy, funky, do something. Don't bottle it. I mean, you have to set the standards very high, especially when you make natural and sparkling. I don't want to make a funky wine. I want to make a clean wine that is top class. And if it's not top class, I will not bottle it, or I will not sell it. And I'm trying to change this picture. This is great fun. I was in Luxembourg, and there was this raw wine fair thing. And it was like sort of street guys, with beards and lots of tattoos, and they were very into organic sparkling wine, and we were. I mean, our wines were there. My distributor in Liège had the wines there, and they didn't believe they were natural wines. No, they said they're too good. They're too refined. They're clean. They're industrial wines. And I said, no, there's no sulfites in there. We don't use yeast. I mean, it's pure. They just didn't believe it. They were boycotting us. They wanted us to leave the wine fair because they were destroying the image of the guys with the Birkenstock shoes and the beards. I'm sorry. I'm a decent guy. I went to college, university. I have my master's and my bachelor's, and I love organic wines and natural wines. I'm sorry if I don't fit in, but I think you can make very clean and focused wines without all the addition that is available in the industry.
Laurens, I think you need a sip of your Diet Coke.
Yes, thank you.
Kathy from South Africa is asking if there are any biodynamic preparations that are conducive to sparkling wine production.
That are specialized to sparkling wine production. No, we don't use. We use the preparations 500, 507. In addition, we use lots of etheric oils and teas from herbs, especially against heat stress and oidium. We use kaolin against oidium and heat stress. There is no special preparation in the vineyard for sparkling wine. If I understand the question good, there is in Champagne, they are thinking of using biodynamic preparations in order to lower the pH of the soil and of the grapes that come from the soil. Because of global warming, the acidity is dropping. And in order to keep the sparkling wines fresh, you need either a higher acidity or a lower pH. Now, there is possibilities. You can alter, you can influence the pH of your grapes by using the Maria Thun preparation, which is I forgot. It's the black stone bar bauxite. I don't know which you put in the cow dung, and then it'll come to me, and it lowers the pH. I don't have this problem yet in Amyndeo, and especially with our new vineyards that are on marl and on very high calcareous soils. I think the pH will go down because of the subsoil.
I'll share, actually, Laurens, I'll share the map again, because I want you to tell us first grape varieties is the same way that Chloi was explaining what we're dealing with. You already said the Xinomavro. What else do you use? You mentioned Assyrtiko, I think, but let's hear from you. What are you using in your sparkling wines?
We use in 80% of the sparkling wines, we use Xinomavro, Blanc de Noir, from the vineyards, and from ungrafted 60-year-old.
Oh yes, we had to mention that it's sorry, I should have mentioned that. Laurens is dealing with ungrafted vines. Successful, I think traditionally in your region of Amyndeo, there were quite a lot of, it's not something that you introduced, but you take advantage of it. So go on, sorry.
Yes, and I find the tannins of ungrafted Xinomavro especially velvety, and they are there, but they're soft and they're round. And whenever we use rootstock, then they get more harsh and more like they get this irony. They give this iron taste to the wines. Now you see here these areas. This is newly planted with 20% Assyrtiko, and not all of them, just 10 hectares. This is, I think, 200 hectares, and we plant. So I mean, actually, this is where am I? This is one we have planted this year. It's almost white. The soil is white. This will do magic for the acidity and the minerality, the pH of our wines. So actually, we started with Xinomavro. We made Blanc de Noir. We made Rosé, and at some point they challenged us and they said, "Well, you have the Assyrtiko, but can you make sparkling wine from Assyrtiko?" And we started this project of Assyrtiko in 2011, and I realized that Xinomavro, they handed us the sparkling wine on a plate. I mean, it was ready. We didn't do anything. Assyrtiko, which we planted, we brought to the area Assyrtiko in 2004. I think we were the first. Maybe Kyriani had half a hectare, but they put it in a blend. We first planted Assyrtiko in Amyndeo on the slopes because it's very prone to freezing. And the problem with Assyrtiko is that it has a very strange nitrogen percentage, which means that, I mean, it didn't hold the bubbles. They were nice, aromatic, they were perfect length, a great sparkling wine, but the mousse just wasn't strong enough. And then I realized that if I blend Assyrtiko with Xinomavro, that had a splendid mousse, and that's where the Assyrtiko Xinomavro blend out of necessity, and just to take the best of both grapes, and we started producing the Prestige. Now the Prestige is the wine you're drinking there. The Prestige is a very strange wine because we only produced like on a yearly basis 3,000, 4,000 bottles. And the first 3-4 years, people were not convinced. You know, if it's your baby, if you fought for it, if you've tried to solve some problems, then you're fond of it. And I mean, no one can take away your baby. But people were not fond of it. And we were on the brink of stopping the project until in 2018, we started disgorging some old bottles from 2013. So 5 years on the lee. and they were just perfect. So they were absolutely fabulous. The mousse, everything had settled, which means that, and I this is my general conviction. I'm convinced that Assyrtiko, in any way you produce it, needs at least 3-4 years in the bottle to get the best out of this grape variety. You know, Assyrtiko for me is like Riesling. So if you harvest well, if you treat it well, and if you bottle it well, when I said if you treat it well, it means you take all the phenols out of the skins without making orange wine, obviously, because that's another category. 2-3 days, like they did in Burgundy in the old days. 2-3 days, and then let it oxidate, and then it goes brown. You don't need any sulfite, and then let it ferment on its indigenous yeast. Just leave it 3, 4, 5 years in the bottle, and then every bottle of Assyrtiko will give you good petrol, will give you a minerality, will give you length. I mean, we sell, not we, in Greece, colleagues, we sell Assyrtikos in the same vineyard, the same vintage. 3-4 months in the bottle, and we sell the Assyrtiko for €7, €10, €14, because in Assyrtiko the prices have gone berserk. They want €25 for the bottle. I think it deserves 25-30 euros per bottle, but age it for 3-4 years at least, and then no one will be, question the pricing of €30 for an Assyrtiko from Greece.
Chloe, sorry, Laurens, we'll come back to it. Just a minute.
Yes.
But as far as Assyrtiko is concerned, do you share this view, or I know that you have some Assyrtiko and you do something completely different? Describe your Assyrtiko.
I think that Assyrtiko is it is a variety that depends a lot on the terroir and on the soil and on the climate where you're growing it. So you can see that, for example, Santorini's Assyrtiko or Goumenissa's Assyrtiko, and from Amyndeo's Assyrtiko is completely different. For me, for example, in Goumenissa, I've seen that everything that we had in double cordon, like the training system of double cordon, even though the maturation was very good and we had very good phenolic maturation, we could even do like a skin maceration and stuff. I was seeing that the acidity was quite low for what I wanted, and also the pH would reach up to something like 3.3, and even at 3.2 I would be very, very happy, to be honest with you. So actually then I started comparing, because we got that parcel on the mountain, which is approximately at 600 meters altitude, and there I saw there was a very small vineyard, something like nothing. I can make 2 barriques out of that parcel. So there I found a pH of 2.9, which is actually very, very weird for the region. But the main difference is that, first of all, you are on the mountain, the soil was sandy, there was also some limestone, while when you're on the plain in Goumenissa, you have, the soil is more argileux, it's clay soil. So it is better for red varieties. What
Just
we
to
did,
explain, you're talking about the mountain, you're talking about Paiko here.
yes, we're talking about Paiko, and we are in the village of Pedalofos that you cannot see somewhere here, but it is just opposite of Griva, from the other side of Griva, actually.
But yeah, just if you...
What we did, however, because it is quite interesting now, we changed the training system. And we did something like Lyre, but it's not Lyre. It is quite, like there's a big distance from the soil. And so the training system is going like that. And we have the leaves falling down. It is not the stable system of Lyre. It is just going down. But by that, we have increased the acidity, the pH is lower, and we have a protection from direct sunlight, which was always the problem in the area. And by just having the double cordon, our problem was that if the leaves were covering the grapes, we would avoid the direct sunlight, and burning of the acids. But at the same time, the leaves would be very close to the grapes. So we would have excessive humidity, which would lead to botrytis and downy mildew and things like that. So by doing the new draining system, actually we are avoiding the humidity, and at the same time, like this is going to be the second harvest of this parcel. But even last year, I found a very big change.
So it's
and also something that Laurens said, I agree that the nitrogen level of Assyrtiko is quite, for me, it reacts like Chardonnay. It can give, like, it gives very good lees, very good quality lees, but at the same time, it can be a bit, for me, for example, that I'm not fining and I'm not filtering, my Assyrtiko is always cloudy. It is more cloudy than Xenomover is going to be, or even than Malagousia is going to be.
Do you have a pair of Birkenstocks?
I do.
There you go. So, okay, so before we touched on, or I asked, we didn't get to your experiments and your wines that are already in production and fermentation vessels. Do you want to tell us what you do with these varieties, how you blend them, and the results?
So, like for me, I'm trying to do, in the beginning, I was trying to do monovarietal wines, because I wanted to introduce to people how the variety can react alone. So I started with fermenting Assyrtiko in old oak barrels. And in the beginning, I did the mistake of doing batonnage. So the first year, even if I didn't have very good acidity, like I had a 5.5 and a pH of 3.2, which is not bad for the region, I was doing so much batonnage, like once per week, that actually the wine became very fatty. And I think that the acidity was masked. Even that acidity, the very small one, it was masked a lot. Next year, I had almost the same chemical analysis, but I didn't do batonnage. So the wine was completely changed, and everybody was saying that it was fresher, and the acidity was the same. The pH was the same. The only difference was that I didn't do batonnage. I'm also fermenting in amphoras, terracotta, and there I'm fermenting Malagousia and Rhoditis to do the orange wine. And I really find these vessels to be pretty interesting. I like them. I would like to have some more if possible. They are, I think that this, I really like microoxygenation. For me, the idea of not like creating microoxygenation, just putting wine to ferment in vessels that oxygen is going to be allowed to enter. I think that fermentation is going better. And also, since I'm not adding sulfur, I'm just adding once, and this is like 1 month before bottling, and the maximum I will go is to 30 milligrams per liter of total sulfur. So I'm trying to make the wine get used to oxygen from the very beginning. I don't want nitrogen, I don't want carbon dioxide, I don't want dry ice. I want the wine and the grapes to start slowly get used to oxygen, because I think that in the end, they will open up the aromas, and in the bottle, they will be able to keep all these aromas for a long time. When I was using nitrogen in other wineries that I was working, and I was working in wineries that we had nitrogen presses, and we would even put nitrogen into the hoses that we would just transfer fermenting wine, but we would put nitrogen before giving that, because we would like to preserve the aromas, which, yes, from a scientific point of view, I can understand why this happens. But in the end, in the bottle, you would open up the bottle, it would be like a perfume, it would be very aromatic, and then in half an hour, it would be another wine. And in 2 days, it would be undrinkable, because this wine, it started from grapes that they were never in contact with oxygen. They went through a whole winemaking procedure without oxygen. And then in the end, when they get in contact with oxygen, this is something very new. So for me, yes, of course, I'm using tanks. Of course, I'm not just using barrels and amphoras and weird stuff. I'm using stainless steel tanks. But even if I don't want to give an oaky character to the wine, I'm going to pass the wine from very old, like 6 or 7 years old oak barrels. First of all, because my wines are not a lot, like I don't do huge quantities, so I cannot put them in tanks because I cannot fill the tanks. So I need to put them in smaller vessels and then do topping up every week. And then, of course, because I want the aromas. For example, this year I did the orange wine, and when it was done, I put it in the tank, and then slowly I started understanding that the aromas were closed. So I put it in oak barrels just to give a little bit of oxygen, and it went well.
Laurens, Chloe is very fond of her pet nut. Are you tempted to maybe bring, because it seems to me that you're doing what you want to do, and it's like the investment is for years ahead. It's not something that basically, how to put it, you're not worried about, maybe you are, but you're not giving that, you not seem to be worried about cash flow.
It's like when I graduated, I traveled 3 months through India, and I did it with I think on a budget of $5 a day. Okay, so this was in the late 80s.
That's luxury.
Yeah, no, true. No, we don't spend anything. It's no, we have cash flow problems, by God. Yes. No, I'm not I like pet nut wines, but I'm not triggered by them to start to try and make them. I mean, I don't want to. I want to focus on the wines we make, and I just want to make them better. I want to make them purer. I have pretty high ambitions. I want to be in the top 100. I want to be on the. I mean, if you ask a wine connoisseur, I want them to know about Amyndeo and about our sparkling wines as being one of the best. We are not there in a long way, which means that I'm investing in my separate parcels. I want to vinify every parcel separately. We have 18. I mean, it's 10 hectares, but it's 1/8. It's 18 different plots. I have no idea of the every individual pH of the grapes. So I need to vinify separate parcels. I don't know how they age the separate parcels. So if I have a parcel which is on a Amaro, okay, so we have a result after 6 months, and we could go to second fermentation. But what about this base wine after 2 years or after 4 years? So this can be very interesting. I want to invest in the quality of the base wines, the complexity of the wines, the length, and I want people to be astonished with the wines we make, the few wines. I mean, we have 4 sparkling wine labels, which is, I mean, I would have wanted less to make it easier. And then we also make some red wines in the good harvests.
Here's one.
Yes. Lucky
you. That's 100% Xenomovro, of course.
Yes, from 100-year-old vines planted in 1912. So that was when Macedonia was under Turkish, Ottoman occupation.
So
yes, they survived.
So you, in a way, because Kathy here stole my question, because I wanted, obviously, I know you want to, you're keen to talk about how you can make the wines better, and you just said about single plots, but this will give you obviously more vinification job to do, and potentially you might even bottle them as that, and you'll end up with more than 4.
Yes.
So.
Well, that is something I hope I can avoid, but you know, I've learned a lot from Eric Rodès, the champagne producer. and he has 3 separate categories. The vin d'auteur, so the wines that are made by the author, so that is blends, that is wines that he vinified. Vin de terroir, that is wines, sometimes millésime, but that are made from certain plots. And then there's vin de parcelle, and that is just a wine from one parcel in one vintage, aged for 7-8 years. Those wines cost 150, 200 euros. But his vin d'auteur, his base wines, base sparkling wines, you can get them for 35, 37, 40 euros, which is very decent. I mean, it's the same price as a Moet, but it's a trillion times better. But I think he has about 12, 14 different labels. That's not my ambition. But I mean, hey, if it's a great wine, then you'll bottle it and you'll label it, and then you deal with the marketing consequences later.
So the Xinomavro is something they do in vintages when they when it's asking to be made, the red wine. And there's no plan to do anything else that is still.
Sorry?
There's no plan for you're not thinking of doing any other still wine?
No.
Okay, so you
Lignona and Xinomavro.
Yeah. So Chloi, what's in your experimental lab for the next 2-3 years?
Well, I have been experimenting so much that I ended up having 9 different labels, which is like insane. It's a lot. I think that I have been acting in the winery like it's a kindergarten, and I'm just playing around doing wines. And this is exactly what Lauren said, that if you like it, then you need to bottle it. You cannot just blend it out with something else and make it mosaic. I mean, it's, you like it, you want to, for me, what I understood is that, okay, I'm gonna give to myself in total 5 years to just play around, and then I need to limit down my labels to something that is going to be a bit commercial and not just playing. So yes, I think that I will try this year not to make a 10th experiment and just keep it to 9. But if I find grapes that I like or something that I want to do, I don't know if I can keep myself. So yes, I just want, what I would like to do now is to just focus a little bit on improving the wines that I already have. And by saying improving, I mainly think that it is improving the harvest. Just trying to be more in contact with that I am already, but it is, you know, I came back in 2017 and I never worked at the winery because it was the job of my father and I didn't really want to do that and blah, blah, blah. So when I came back, I was introduced to the vineyards, and imagine that the first year I was harvesting every parcel with the harvesters because I wanted to see how the parcel is and if it is difficult to harvest or if it is easy and how much time it takes and stuff like that. So now I think that every year I see that I'm changing a little bit the harvest time, or that I am trying to do more analysis and trying to find the correct harvest, because when you're doing low intervention wines and you cannot interfere in the wine, you just need to have a very, very good grape quality, and you need also to do a lot of sorting that I was also telling you last time. And I think that this is for this year, this is what I want to do. Then for the next years, there are a lot of, like, for example, I've never done second fermentation method traditionnelle. I would like to try it. But not, it was like with my best friend, we wanted to make a wine. He's working in England for like a sparkling wine making company, like in Hampshire. And he said, let's make a project together, let's make pet nuts. So it was just, there was no economical analysis behind that. It was just like, yes, it is fun, it's nice, like, let's make a sparkling wine. Yeah.
So another question that is going to be, well, the question itself will be a challenge from Kathy. What is the biggest challenge for both of you? Maybe we'll start with Laurens in this COVID period.
Cash flow. It's very easy. We don't have access to money. we need to buy bottles. I mean, the 40,000 plants in the vineyards, they need cherishing, they need nourishing. That is a one-on-one job. So that needs lots of hands. You need to pay the wages. You need to do a lot yourself. Buy bottles, bottle empty tanks, so you can do the next harvest. So it's money. That's the only thing. I mean, our production, we sell about 30,000 bottles a year. We can sell those even in the difficult years. Maybe it'll take a little longer. I think things will blow over in 6 months or so, and then people will start drinking. We don't have 1 million or 2 million bottles to sell. We can find ways, but how to produce them without money? That is impossible. The banks don't give money.
You mentioned privately also the issue of workforce and how you had to do everything pretty much in the vineyards yourself for the last 3 months.
Yeah. That's why I'm so tanned. It's not. I've not been lying in the beach. If I take off my shirt, don't worry. I won't. But it's going to be like a milk bottle. Pure white. This is a workman's face, and it's because we need to go into the vineyard ourselves now again.
Chloi, what was the biggest challenge for you?
For us, it was that when COVID started, like we got 1 year ago, 2 years ago, we got licensed to plant in total 10 hectares. So we missed the first year, saying that we can do it in the next 2 years, doing 5 hectares 1 year and 5 hectares the next one. So we bought the plants, and then COVID came. So restaurants, bars, and exports are closed. So this means that there's no money coming. Maybe there are like individual people buying wine, but how much wine are they going to drink? And then you get to plant. Vines cannot wait because of COVID. Even if we didn't have to plant, we would need to be in the vines, like in the parcel. So for me, this whole thing, it is of course a problem of cash flow. It is a problem of storing wine. It is not just, okay, we will sell it now that the market is open, because now when you have full tanks that you haven't sold, exactly what Lauren said, you don't have space to make the other vintage. And the whole thing goes that even if you bottle, you don't have space to store it. Or if you don't bottle, then what are you going to do? Are you going to throw it away? Are you going to distill it for 0.4, like 40 cents per liter? I mean, this whole thing is not going to give any cash flow. And this creates a very big, for me, it is a very big matter. I think that it could go a bit better, but the big challenge is now the harvest. Also, a harvest, it is a very costly situation. So by losing 3 months, like we lost March, April, May, and we're losing tourism now in Greece. So this means that we're losing actually our main economic sources. Even if you have wine, and even if it is now, you can send it away, bars and restaurants are closed still in other places. The experts and the market is a bit insecure. They don't know how this is gonna work out. Even when I'm sending to hotels or wine bars on the islands, like they made an order, they told me we're going to open in June, and then they said, no, we will open the first week of July, and then they opened up and it didn't work out and it's gonna go later. So even if you send the wines, if they are not going to sell them, the question is, are they going to pay for them? So this creates a very big, it is like a chain, you see? Everybody, I don't think that it is only in our field. I think that every field right now is going through a very weird situation and a critical economical situation. But in our field, I see things somehow like that, a bit weird.
Kathy also wanted to know if we could...
Things. Sorry, Moshe, can I add a positive note to the COVID? I'm a strange guy. I can see positive things everywhere and challenges. For our base wines and for our bottled wines, this delay of 6 months or even a year is very beneficial, because this gives me a chance until now, we were sold out, and we were disgorging bottles that actually were not really ready. And now, we haven't sold a bottle in 6 months, almost. But now they're longer on the lee. The base wines are aged better. They are more balanced. We're not in a rush. Also, psychologically, if you step away from the financial problems, they're huge. There's families without income. That is keeping me awake at night. Our responsibility. However, we cannot change this. So this is a given fact. The rat race of marketing, of doing presentations, of traveling to New York, to London, to Paris to promote your wines, to go to wine fairs, it has been a blessing to not have gone through this ordeal, and we could just focus. I mean, there's no way we can find money. There's no, there's not a tree you can shake and then the money falls down. So there's no money. So if you step aside and you go to the vineyard and you just take care of your plants, like we did in 2003, 2004 when we started this winery, that gives a lot of energy. That gives you a lot of ideas. That makes you capable of making better choices. So after running 15 years, taking one step back is sometimes very beneficial. Just put everything on hold. Let the globe stop turning for 6 months. Think, relax, reflex, rethink your decisions. What are you going to do? Put your priorities, maybe change some priorities, and then if COVID goes away, and then everything starts going, you will see a lot of good things coming out of this period. For at least for me, I'm actually happy with some of the aspects of this COVID period. I enjoyed a lot of moments in these strange times.
I had winemakers that I interviewed weeks ago saying pretty much the same thing. They can concentrate. So I think especially the viticulturalists out
Yes.
of there, because
Yes.
they say, I don't want to be away from my vineyard. Going all the way to the nearest airport, 3-hour drive, go away from the family for 5-6 days, crossing the Atlantic, talking to 30-40 people, and it's like you said, it's been a non-stop, and that was the routine forever. So to see an alternative and to maybe experience a bit of an alternative for temporarily is maybe not a bad idea, but no. I'm sorry.
If there is cash flow. If there is cash flow.
If there is cash flow, yes.
If there is cash flow. I totally agree, if there is cash flow.
To think out of the box.
You cannot make cash flow. I mean, you cannot bring tourists.
No, you cannot. You cannot, like wine tourism and everything is done now. So you just
accept it.
Accept it. However, I think that if, for example, this goes on and we have a second quarantine coming on, then I think that the market is going to start changing. Everything that we knew, like going to places and they make presentations and exporting, we are still going to export, but I don't know if this is going to be mainly to individuals or to bigger markets. I think that this whole thing of the distributors it could possibly change if this goes on for a long time. If it just goes on until December, it is 1 year, but however, it is a virus, so I don't think that it's just going to be until December.
To just finish on Kathy's question before, if you had one wish each, Laurens, what would you be wishing for if you had one wish granted?
Oh, I'm so anxious to bring a horse to the vineyard, and then just work the vineyards or part of some vineyards, probably for the red wines, the old vineyards, the 100-year-old vineyards, and work them with the horse. So no tractor, just the silence, the sound of the horse plowing and going forth through the vineyard.
I remember seeing some stuff that you posted. I don't know, about October or November.
Yes, I went to the region where France is bordering with Switzerland, and they use lots of horses in the steep vineyards there. And I've done some practice for 1 week. So I was an intern. I had to plow some vineyards, and I adored it. It was a life-changing experience.
Are you still waiting for the license? What's the problem?
The money.
To get the horse and to
Look,
maintain.
you buy a mule. You have to train it. A good mule. So a cross between from a Belgian big, draft horse and a good big mule. That they cost 10,000 euros. Then you have to ship them to bring them to France, which costs another 3,000 euros. It's not an economic priority, but so if I can make a wish, if there's someone out there that can send me a mule.
Kathy is saying that she's looking for a magic wand. Percheron is the yes. Yes. You'll have one appearing in a minute behind your back.
There was the monks in Chalkidiki in Mount Athos. There's some, and they work horses in their vineyard, and that's horrible. I mean, it's like those tiny horses, and they make them plow this soil, and it's animal abuse. So that's the reason why I really want a draft horse from Belgium or from France in order to do this work without torture. They like to work, but they must be capable of working.
Guys, Laurens describes himself as a lone wolf that doesn't belong to any association. He now on something that will go live called the Monks in Mount Athos. Animal abusers.
Yes.
Well, I'm not saying where to, but Chloi, what's your wish?
My wish for the future.
Well,
my wish.
Yes.
Yes. I want to make I gave a lot of years to winemaking and enology, and slowly I want to go back to the vineyard. And I want to start doing like a bit of biodynamics or permaculture and just come closer to that. And I have, that is what I'm planning to do.
I will, before we go, I will ask you each, often I ask it, but I think with you it might be really interesting, and you're not prepared for it because yesterday we went over the questions and I didn't ask you that, but your desert island wine. Now, when I ask about people, what's your desert island wine? Sometimes they say desert's not fun to drink, it's hot. Forget about it. You think it's a tropical island and you're Robinson Crusoe and you're there, everything, but you've not had wine for a while. What would you like to be found washed ashore? A case of what, Laurens?
I don't think it will be wine. I love everything about winemaking, the whole process, everything. But I'm not a wine aficionado. I don't have one wine. I admire some winemakers. I admire some regions. I never had a wine. For me, a wine is a company, is food, is the combination of all those things. I'm not very happy when I think a barrel of good lager will make me very happy on this desert island.
There you go. It's acceptable. It's fine as long as it's a drink. Don't tell me it's to find Friday. But Chloi, what is your?
For me, it would be bubbles.
Okay.
It would be bubbles for sure. And this is like also during the quarantine that I spend too much time alone because I'm living alone and there was nobody around. I think that just a glass of bubbles was making me happy every night. Or every 2 nights.
Can you imagine you're there for a few years alone on a Caribbean island with no wine, and then the case of Karanika is showing on the show. That will be an amazing. Yes. Well, I think. Yeah, so we touched a bit about the grape varieties, about the regions of Amyndeo and Goumenissa. We couldn't go too deep on any aspect. So it's a personal, I wanted to hear from your personal stories, which we did, and also a little bit about the wines you make, and the wines that you want to make. So thank you for that, and thank you everybody for attending. Next week we're continuing in Greece. We will have a second leg of our Greek Wine Odyssey. My guest will be Stelios Boutaris, CEO of Kyriani and President of the Northern Greece Winemakers Association, Kostis Dalamaras and Christos Taralas, which is, thank you, Chloi, for putting us in contact, and Chris Georgiadis, that is there in the middle of your screen. And we will talk about Nausa, and we will hear a bit more about Xinomavro, but different. There'll be a different touch on that. Don't forget that the show is recorded, so if you want to listen or watch or to send the link to your friends, it will be tomorrow on www.inthevineyardwith.com, and find me on Instagram under that name, In the Vineyard With. Thank you for Borders Wines for sponsoring this episode, and to Maltby and Greek for the generous samples. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody, and goodbye. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.